Well, there are just two match days to go in this 23-24 Premier League season, and fresh from the news that Nottingham Forest have had their appeal against their 4-point deduction rejected, there is one final glimmer of hope for Luton Town as they look forward to a trip to West Ham United this weekend, where David Moyes will enjoy his final home game at the end of a spell that has been very bizarrely received. We'll talk about that fixture, preview the whole of the weekend's action in the Premier League, and of course, we'll give our score predictions as always. I'll encourage you to get involved down in the comments below. Give me your score predictions for match day 37. If you beat or match my overall score, you'll get a shout out next weekend ahead of the final day. We will be back in the middle of next week to look forward to Luton v Fulham next Saturday. And hopefully, after what happens this weekend, that will still be an important fixture. To find out if it is or not, we've got to have a look ahead to the big game this weekend. And of course, all the other scores as well. So let's start by looking ahead to West Ham United versus Luton, a day that really should be a celebration of one of West Ham's most successful managers of the 21st century. But after a very strange relationship with the fans for some time and a very poor heavy 5-0 defeat away at Chelsea last weekend, things aren't looking quite so comfortable and celebratory down at West Ham United. It's a shame really because they're in the top half of the Premier League again. They reached the European quarter-final for the third year in succession, including winning the Conference League in the middle year. And they were only stopped narrowly by a Bayer Leverkusen side that haven't lost in any competition this year, as everyone well knows. So a bit of a strange one coming up against David Moyes, who has done a remarkable job at West Ham, but seems to be a little underappreciated, partly in terms of style of play, which we mentioned in the previous episode near the start of the season, but also in terms of recent results, which haven't been great. And now it does look like, particularly from press conferences and body language, he's checked out a bit. And obviously it looks like Julian Lopetegui will be going in to replace him now. Let's talk about Luton versus Everton last weekend first, though, because the Friday night football delivered a much better performance from Luton Town after a few poor weeks. And we said it prior to the game, didn't we? The difference Elijah Adebayo makes is seismic. To lose your top scorer for 2.5 months, it's had a very poor impact on the side. And his magic showed again. A long ball forward to him in the 31st minute. And he just showed his class, his physical attributes, his technique, the whole lot combined. He is the complete package of a Premier League striker. While he wasn't quite fit to do 90, he just about kept us in the race. My score prediction of 2-1 didn't quite come off thanks to a couple of last-ditch goal line clearances from Everton. But the good news from a Luton point of view is that they weren't carved open that often from open play. When they went aggressive, they were able to hem Everton in late on. They were able to get them in their own final third and really put the pressure on from set pieces and from wide areas. And it's just a shame in the end that Adebayo couldn't do the whole game. You could see in the second half he wasn't quite the same threat. But runners the likes of Chong were fantastic again. And you just think, what if we had someone like Ogbene fit who could have just got in behind there? We saw against Newcastle earlier in the year what that could do. It is a case of what might have been when it comes to injuries for Luton. But good to see Sambi Lokonga looking back to full shape again. The defenders are building fitness and improving. And bar that moment of madness from Mengi, we defended really well. But is it too little too late? Luton were the aggressors. They were the better side. They probably could have argued they just about deserved to nick it in the end. Luke Berry, an overhead kick that was a whisker away from being the heroic moment. But as it is, Luton forced to accept a 1-1 draw. And thanks to Sheffield United doing what they do best on Saturday against Forest, it was 3 points the difference between the two sides with 2 games to go. We know now after all of the stuff off the pitch that isn't going to change. So we can just look at the 2 football matches. Can Luton get it to the final day? Because with Forest then playing Burnley, it could become incredibly tense. Almost an ideal situation for Luton is Luton and Burnley to win this weekend. While it does mean Burnley have a chance of getting past Luton as well, it also means that they'll have something to play for when they face Forest and want to go out in style. So incredibly encouraging signs from Luton from a performance point of view. Hopefully Chio will be fit, and it has been on the grass for a couple of weeks now, maybe to feature in that right wing back role, because without Kabore, with Fred Onyedinma, who fair play to him, is doing a job and doing okay there, but he's not quite the same threat, and he's not quite got the same pace as Chio, which frightens the life out of defensives. Really positive signs again, a good Barkley performance in the middle with Lokonga, Adebayo and Morris looking a real threat together up top. And Chong for me has been the player of the second half of the year, and has been the real one trying to ignite a spark when we struggle later on in the season. So I do think Luton are in a decent position for this one, and as we mentioned, they're up against a West Ham side who are not in the greatest of form. However, despite their season petering out, it is a final home hurrah for David Moyes, and a lot of players in that team do respect him and admire him for what he's done for their career. And Luton's type of attack is the sort of one that West Ham prefer to deal with. They really struggled with Chelsea running in behind, running between lines at the weekend, because the likes of Zuma and Ogbonna, who are the fit centre-halves at the minute, they would rather have balls bombarded into the box and deal with that threat from a deeper area, and then try and counter-attack teams, which is what they'll get the chance to do against Luton, who will be aggressive, who will chuck Morris and Adebayo up there. And that's why I say it's important that perhaps someone like Chio is back and nearly fully fit, because it does give you that different threat in behind. I'm not sure it's going to be in time, though. What it may do, though, is allow space to the likes of Lokonga and Barkley and Chong 25 yards out. Will someone produce a moment of magic from outside the box? I don't know. But equally, with Luton's defence, which has looked frail at times, and of course is exposed due to a huge lack of players back there, loads of injuries defensively most of the year, are we going to be able to cope on the break with Paqueta feeding through balls for the likes of Kudus and Bowen? Kudus still played pretty well in that 5-0 defeat. And of course, we saw the set-piece delivery of James Ward-Prowse, which caused real problems for us earlier in the season at Kenilworth Road. So I am a little bit worried about West Ham's attacking threat. I just hope that they're still switched off and they play like they did last week, because if they did, it gives Luton a chance. And as I've said many a time, the last few weeks of this season, I'm going for heart over head. I'm not worrying about what I think the score would be, which, as I said last Friday's one, I thought it would be 1-1, but I went for 2-1. And I'm going the same again. I think West Ham would probably nick this game, to be honest, but I'm going for hope more than expectation. I'm going for the big finale to the season. I'm going to pray that Chelsea keep up their good form against Nottingham Forest. And I'm going to go for Luton to show their attacking threat with Adebayo back to form and fitness. So I'm going to go with no judgment at all for Luton to win at West Ham by 3-1. You can forgive me, West Ham fans. I think it was going to be a tighter game and I think West Ham would probably nick it. But we've got to go for it now. We want an entertaining finish. So let's just forget about trying to get the predictions right and have a little bit of fun. Let's go for Luton to win by 3-1. Even though I don't think it's going to happen, quite frankly. With that out the way, though, let's have a look ahead to the rest of Matchday 37. And before we go and give our predictions for those, we've got to look back at last weekend, haven't we? Where we predicted 11 games, including that Thursday night bonus one between Chelsea and Spurs. Boy, we got that wrong, didn't we? We did get 5 points overall, but no perfect scores this time, as the goals were flying in with 4s and 5s everywhere. We got a point for Palace's win against United, though it was more emphatic than we thought. Liverpool, Manchester City, Newcastle and Arsenal all won as well. And we get ourselves a point each for them, making it 5 in total for Matchday 36. 2 of you drew level with that score and 4 of you managed to beat it. So a quick shout out to Kurt and Chris, who also got 5. Mello, 4th place with 7 points. And then we have 3 joint winners on 9. WNG, Steve and Kieran, all 3 of our regulars. But Kieran, you got 2 perfect scores. So technically, you just edge out Matchday 36. Let's move on to 37 though. You've got 2 more chances to beat me. And given the fact I'm going for wild scores and hoping that things will work out in our favour, let's see what I've gone for in Matchday 37. I've gone for the early game on Saturday to finish Fulham 1 at Manchester City 2. I don't think City will drop points. I know there's a risk with the Spurs game, but the way they're defending, there won't be any issues. City are going to win despite Fulham being a good home side. I think this could end up being one of their trickiest games in the remainder of the season. Maybe even more likely the one they're going to slip up in rather than their bogey team Spurs. I think they'll just edge a way through by 2-1. Bournemouth-Brentford, I'm going lower scoring because there seems to be one per match day that surprises us that way. Brentford haven't looked a great goal threat recently. Tony 10 without a goal. Bournemouth having a really good season. I'm going for them to win 1-0. Everton v Sheffield United. Look, Sheffield United have been better on the road. They've been a little bit more solid. But still, the first side to concede 100 goals in the 38-game Premier League season. Everton have Calvert-Lewin back. They do look a threat with him. And you know what? They've done so well to get safe. A final home game of the season. They can make it a celebration and keep things up. Their unbeaten run under Sean Dyche in a tracksuit with a 2-0 win in that one. Newcastle look on absolute fire, and while Brighton were a bit better against a hapless Aston Villa and a fatigued Aston Villa, Newcastle at home look rampant against everyone at the minute. Brighton have taken some real beatings on the road this year, and I think Newcastle could tear them inside out. I'm going to go for Newcastle United to win 5-1 because we saw a lot of wild scores, didn't we? Spurs v Burnley, it's an interesting one. There's part of me that thinks this could be a draw. We saw Burnley do well at Stamford Bridge in a similar type of game against a style with a high pressing defence. Spurs, though, I mean, they've been so poor defensively recently, but I just think they'll have enough in attack. They showed a bit of that late on against Liverpool, and I think he will change the team to be a bit more similar to what it was at the end of that game. And as a result, I'm going to go for Spurs to beat Burnley just by 3-2, even though I'd rather them be in it on the final day. West Ham Luton, you know I've gone for the ambitious heart over head ruling of 3-1 to the visitors. Wolves v Palace, what a performance Palace on Monday, but Wolves, seems weird to say, will be a much sterner test than United. At home they've generally been pretty good. Hwang Hee-chan loves a goal at Molineux. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw here. Keep the unbeaten run going for Palace, but I'm not sure they're going to find as much space 20-25 yards out against Wolves, so I'm going to go for them to draw this one. Nottingham Forest Chelsea is the big one for Luton fans. We need a Chelsea win. Deliver, will you? I know they've slipped up at certain times. There'll be a few players motivated, likes of Hudson-Odoi against his former club, but Chelsea are in form. They've overtaken United, and they've got a real chance at the top 6 and 7 now. European football next season, a real priority for them. So I'm going to go for them to edge it by 2-1. Please, although I do feel they might slip up here. United versus Arsenal, I'm going for a bonkers game. United do raise their game against the top sides. We've seen that this season. But the defence they've got available at the moment, while I think there will be a threat on the counter against Arsenal, the defence they've got to choose from will be ripped to shreds by Arsenal, in my opinion. While it might end up being wrong, the sensible prediction has to be for Arsenal to score 3 or 4. I think United may get a couple. I think it could be a more open game than we're expecting. I'm going to go for Arsenal to win it for sure. And the scoreline I'm going for is 4-2. And then Liverpool at Aston Villa on Monday. Look, Villa have got to throw everything at Olympiacos on Thursday. And obviously, I'm having to predict this before that game. They're 4-2 down on aggregate. They're going to go very aggressive. They're going to play everyone. And I think we might see a few rotated on Monday because with Spurs slipping up yet again last weekend, they can afford to throw away one game in that race for the top 4 and then maybe just rest everyone and have them fit for a fresh performance the week after. So that's kind of what I'm going to go for. I'm going to go for Liverpool to win by 3-1. Jurgen Klopp now on his send-off message. They were better going forward against Spurs, but defensively they were a little bit of a mess again. So 3-1 Liverpool to finish off. Those are my predictions then for matchday 37. You agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments below. I think disagree if you're ruling with your head when you're doing these predictions. Let me know yours in the comments, and if you beat or match my score, you'll get a shout out in the next recap when we look ahead to the final day of the season. And get your prediction in the comments below. Will next week still be important for Luton, Forest and Burnley? Or will it be all settled by then? If Luton don't win and Forest do, it could be all over going into the final day. Let us know your thoughts on all of that. If you enjoyed it, please do put a thumbs up on the video. Big video coming tomorrow as well. We've got our EFL Championship semi-final predictions. Leeds versus Norwich, Southampton, West Brom. 2 massive games that we're going to try and pick the bones out of. Come and get involved in that. Let me know what you think the scores will be. And thank you very much for your support as always. If you want to make sure you don't miss anything as we do the rest of the League 1 and League 2 playoffs too, and subscribe and turn that notification bell on. We'll be back next week to predict the final for each of those 2. But for now, a massive thank you for watching. Good luck to Luton, to Chelsea, and of course to Burnley this weekend. And we'll be back next time for matchday 38. But before that, tomorrow for the Championship playoff predictions.